Looks like it's working. All right. I should have done some vocal exercises before we started doing the stream here. Maybe I should wait to see if people actually start watching or not. So I'm going to talk to myself for a few moments. Maybe tell people about my darkest, deepest secrets. I've never seen a John Hughes movie. I'm actually... I'm not a Canadian. I've been lying the entire time. That's a lie. All of those are lies. Or are they? Pick which one you believe. I have a few different things that I want to talk with you today during this nice, nifty live stream. Maybe what I should do, too, while I'm waiting for people to join, is actually tweet this out. Let me do that. Tweet. July live stream. Log in and tweet. For some reason, I don't know why this happens on the YouTube, but it always defaults to take the last live stream's picture and use that as the thumbnail, which is really awkward and weird. Yeah, like, it still thinks it's May, so it's 2 months behind schedule now. That's weird. Anyways, someone is actually watching now, so if you want to tweet out to people that, hey, this thing is going on, this cool thing where a guy talks to people, I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so a few different things. Hello, person who's watching. I don't know who it is that has actually clicked on it. I have a couple of stories that I want to tell here today. One about my recent trip to VidCon, one celebrating Canada Day yesterday, and then basically just some gifts and stuff that I received. One gift that I've received is really what it's going to be down to. So, also, if you have questions or things that you want to interact with, definitely leave them down in the comments. Do a quick little text thing, and I'll get to them forthwith. If that is a word. One of the big things that I wanted to talk about first was this. This is called The Adventure Zine, which is a magazine that was gifted to me when I was down in Anaheim here recently. A good friend of mine, Grant, brought this to give to me, but it was actually Blake, who I know listens to my one podcast called Whatever This Is. He also occasionally, I know, watches the videos that I make, but he is also an Adventure Zone fan, which I realize that I am like getting onto that bandwagon super late about like just loving what the McElroy brothers do. But be that as it may, they do this podcast called The Adventure Zone. You may have seen me review it a few weeks back during MISC, that video series I do called MISC. Again, I'm a huge fan. The Adventure Zone is essentially these three brothers and their father who played Dungeons and Dragons together. And it's a super fun time. It's super funny. And weirdly enough, I get super emotional at certain points just because of how well the story is being told. That there are times where it's just like, oh man, that actually hit me right in the gut, and I wasn't even anticipating that happening. So this is basically just artwork that people have been so enthused by the show that they've actually drawn different things, like Angus MacDonald, Boy Detective, or let me get some other stuff here. Like, look at some of this stuff here. Some of this stuff is like super well done. Let me go with some more here. Like that one, for instance. Anyways, it's just an art book that I get to flip through, and I'm really excited about it. So that was number one. Number two, I want to tell this thing that happened yesterday. So if you're not from Canada, you may have seen it all over Facebook and Twitter yesterday, how yesterday, July 1st, was Canada Day. And so it's kind of our big, like, rah, 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 we're such a great country, right? So I had this idea for a video there's like, I was super enthused by it. Hello, second person that's watching. Introduce yourself down below. Ask a question. I was super enthused by this idea. It's like, I'm going to take my camera and tripod down to this busy street in downtown Calgary. I'm going to set it up. I'm going to have this sign that says, "We'll interview for free." In fact, I actually even have, get this out here. This was the big sign I made. "We'll interview for free." And so I had that set up. I had the camera all set up. And I was ready to go. Put up the sign. And I was like trying to make eye contact with people, like doing like the smile, like, "Hey, yeah, like camera, come over here and talk to me." So like high fives, everything going on. "Hi, Vince. Hello." So I thought this was gonna be super good. What I wanted to do was this like interview man on the street sort of thing, where I just wanted to find out about people in 9 minutes, and I was kind of. I was inspired to do this. There was this Canadian personality called Stuart McLean. His name was Stuart McLean. He's since passed away. He just passed away this last year. And I was a huge fan of his. He did a storytelling show on the radio, made a podcast out of it. I went and saw him live quite a few times. But way back in, like, I want to say the late 90s, he did this on a train. He went onto a train and basically just said, "We'll interview for 5 cents," and had people come over, and he just talked to them and had a conversation for 9 minutes. And I was like, "Oh, that's a cool idea. I want to do that in real life." So I pack up all my stuff, like I said, go down, I have it all set up, ready to go, making that eye contact, trying to engage with people, and then all of a sudden I just see out of the side of my peripheral vision this guy sidle up to me. And so I turn, I'm like, "Hi," and he's like, "What you doing?" So he had this kind of really scraggly little beard. Billy on the Street was not my inspiration, Vince. No, I'm not going to go and yell at people. So he had this scraggly little beard. He had probably half of his teeth were missing. His hat was on sideways. But he had like a Canadian flag and his backpack was on. And he was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm interviewing people." And he's like, "If you interview me, it's going to cost $15,000. I'm like, "Oh, okay. I mean, I don't have it recording right now, so don't feel like I'm recording you." And that's where it went even weirder and off track, because I was getting really awkward because he was just staring at me, and I was like, "No, this is awkward." I'm like, "My name is Kyle." And he's like, "Kyle, my name is Lord 7. I'm like, "Excuse me? You're what? Huh?" "My name is Lord 7. I was like, I was caught off guard, and I was like, "Oh, this is where this conversation is going. All right, okay. So, hello, Lord 7. Like I said, my name is Kyle." And I was like, "How's your day going?" And he's like, "It's going good. This morning, I walked around, and I woke up the dead." I'm like, "Oh boy. Okay, so what does that mean?" It's like, what does that entail? It's like, "Well, I went to them, I woke them awake, and I told them, today is not the day to die. And then I let them go back to sleep in their dirt prisons." I'm basically trying to remember all he said from memory, but that's basically the gist that he was talking about. And now at this point, and I know I shouldn't judge people, but in the moment, it was really hard for me. Like, I really hope that I'm not about to get stabbed, because this is getting really awkward right quick. I was like, "Okay, cool story, I guess." It's like, and then I was like, "Are you having a good Canada Day?" And then all of a sudden his like face brightened up, and he was all like, "Yeah, it's going good. How's yours?" I'm like, "Okay, so wait a second. Are you just like shitting me right now? Like, are you trying to provoke a reaction or something like that? Is this an entirely made up thing?" And then his face went back, and he was like Lord 7 again. Apparently, as I did a little bit more digging, he is second only to God. So there's God, and then there's him, Lord 7, and he decides to walk around Calgary, interacting with scared white guys on the side of the street. What I took from this, it's interesting. Like, I mean, I really thought that this was a good video idea where, like, I'm going to get some cool stories, I'm going to intercut them and just see, like, these slices of life of people and how they how they're living and how they got to Calgary and blah, 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 blah. Not a single person stopped. Granted, I only stood there for like 30, maybe 40 minutes. But all the people that came up to me were either very drunk or very high. And maybe sometimes a combination of both. It was an interesting experience only because it's like you sometimes have this really cool idea, but you aren't able to execute it because of like you don't have the right resources, or you don't have the right funds, or you don't have the right people that you can bring into it. And this is like, maybe I just picked the wrong day, because this is Canada Day. This is something that is devoted to being like celebratory, and people are going to imbibe and they're going to be ingesting different things. And so it's probably one of those things where it was like the wrong time, the wrong date and the wrong time to go and try and do something artsy fartsy downtown. But if you ever see Lord 7, tell him Kyle sent you, because he's cool and things. Yep. All right. So that was one thing. Number 2, if you saw me at VidCon at all, or if you saw me in person, you're probably going to be sick and tired of this story. And I told a very condensed version of this. If you do listen to my podcast, whatever this is, you'll have heard this already. But I do want to go over it again, because I think it was just so crazy, out of character, I guess, for me. Thanks, Vince. It was a bummer. It was, I thought, a cool idea. I'm going to try it again. I need to figure out where it's going to happen and where people are going to actually sit down and engage with me without being super drunk. So at VidCon, when I was done, by the way, again, for those of you who joined me, there's 3 people watching now. So if you want to introduce yourself down in the comments, do so. If you have questions, put them down there too, and we can have a little bit of a back and forth if need be. Answer to your first question, yes, I am this handsome in real life. Second, let's talk about this party I went to at VidCon. So here's the thing. I've been to every single VidCon, like all 8 years that the convention has been going on, from the time it was like 1,500 people in the bottom of this like hotel in Los Angeles, all the way up to now, where I forget how many people actually came this year, but we'll say like around 18,000 people crowded into the Anaheim Convention Center. And each year it's more me going, getting a few different tips that I can utilize, seeing friends that I've made there over the years, and just continuing on those relationships. But I've always kind of seen from afar this separation of fan and creator that's really become more and more prevalent over the years. And there's good things and bad things, I think, about that. I mean, as you start to understand how there is a great segment of the viewership who looks at YouTube people as celebrities, as people to look up to, as people to freak out about, as if it was Justin Bieber or the Beatles from the 50s, or the 60s, I guess. There's need to be that kind of segmentation a little bit to keep people safe and to make sure bad things don't happen. So I've seen from afar this huge segmentation that's happened, and one of the big things is that there's normally a big party that happens at the end of VidCon, and it is always where the top YouTubers are. You'll see them on their Snapchats or their Instagram stories, or they'll make YouTube videos about it after the fact, where I'm looking at this from afar. I don't get to participate in that because I am not one of those creators. Meaning I don't have like over 1 million subscribers. However, so this year I went down to VidCon with this very clear goal. I was like, I am going to network way more than I ever have before. And I know that networking is sometimes seen as this really dirty word, where it's like, can't you just be like someone who creates for the fun of it? Can't you just be someone who isn't thinking about this in a monetary way? And to them I say, shut up. No, I mean, I understand that, and I think that there is a great portion of people who still use the website as for fun. And I think that's great. I think you should still do that. I am being very blunt and upfront with people and saying, if I could, I would love to make this my full-time job, whether that's me in front of the camera, behind the camera, producing, running a network of some kind. I don't even know what that would entail. That is something that I would be very interested in doing. So I went down there with the express thing. I was like, I want to network with people, find out about them, figure it out, and just like talk to people back and forth and try and create more relationships. And one of the very first talks that I went to was about how are creators making money on other platforms besides YouTube. It was a really interesting talk, but one of the people that was there was this person from Patreon. In Patreon, I am a part of Patreon, and again, being totally upfront, I'm a total fanboy of the Patreon model, of Jack Conte, who's the CEO, of any person I've ever met that has worked for Patreon. I think they are the bee's knees, to steal a phrase from the hip young crowd. I'm a big fan of theirs. So, let that be at the forefront of your brain. Anyways, there was someone from Patreon who was talking about it, and I was like, "Oh, I have a kind of I want to see if they would be willing to offer me feedback on my Patreon page." And so, right as the panel ended, I rushed up to the front. I was like, "Hey, can I steal you for a couple minutes?" And they're super enthusiastic, and they're like, "Sure, yeah, let's talk about this." And there's a bunch of people that were kind of around her, so I waited for them to answer their questions. I eventually said, well, what I was wondering is there a way that you could offer feedback on my page? And she's like, sure, I don't have time right now, but I'm doing another panel that ends at 3:30 today, so come by and I'll take a look at your page. I'm like, oh, awesome, that's cool. That was way more than I thought you were actually going to tell me, but I'm going to make a commitment to actually be back here at 3:30. Now, the big thing about this is that I also had this opportunity as part of a lottery system that I actually got to go and sit down with the Gregory brothers for an hour. So it was me and like 5 or 6 other people, and we were sitting there and we were having this great conversation with the Gregory brothers about life on internet and on YouTube and how to grow your channel and how to do proper collaborations. It was just a really cool forum to talk with them and them to offer advice and mentorship to us, and also to meet some other people that are around the table. Oh, Jen is here too. Hi, Jen. And so I'm there, and I'm in the moment, and I'm talking, and I realize, oh man, we've gone over time. I need to book it over to this place where I know that this Patreon person is going to be, and said that I could meet them there. So my friend Jen, who happens to be in the comments right now, who is there with me, she was like, they're leaving because you're not here. I'm like, stall them. I was like texting, stall them for a second, please. I say, goodbye, Gregory Bros. Thanks for meeting me. I peace out of there, and I run down the hallway, I hoof it, and then she's there, and I come up to her, I'm like, hey, you said that I could come back at 3:30, look at my page, bring out my computer. She does it a once over, and she does offer some really great feedback for me. I really took it to heart, and I'm going to be doing a live stream just for my Patreon members right after this one, so we'll go into more detail there about exactly what you can expect from that. But so she gives me the feedback. I'm very thankful. I say thank you so much for doing that, more than I anticipated. Oh, Grant's here. You have no pants on. Well, neither do I. So pantsless bros. So there I am. We're finishing up. She gives me the feedback, and then completely unprovoked on my end, she's like, oh, by the way, we should give you a wristband so you can come to the Patreon party on the last day of VidCon. And I'm like, oh, what now? Part of me was like, no, that's not going to happen, but sure, thank you, yes. And she was like, tomorrow, text me, we'll make the wristband thing happen, and you'll be able to come to the Patreon party. I'm like, okay, fine. So the next morning, I give her a text. I'm like, hey, you mentioned that you might be able to give me a wristband. Where can I meet you today? And she's like, well, you know what? Turns out that we don't have as many wristbands as I thought. We might not be able to give them out to you. And I was like, that's fine. I wasn't really expecting on being able to go there anyways. I'll do other things. Cool having met you. Have a great trip back to San Francisco. So let's flash now to the last day of VidCon. We've wrapped up the day. I actually went and saw this comedy show that they put on. It had Mike Falzone and Elliott Smith and a bunch of other people from SourceFed doing stand-up comedy. coming back to the room, and I get this text, and I have to be very specific here. It was like 10 p.m. at night, or just turned 10, and it's this person, and she's like, "Oh, by the way, you should totally come to the party. I now have a wristband for you that you can come here." And I should have said, Jen also had asked if she could get a wristband, and Heather was totally like, "Yeah, totally." So she's like, "Okay, I have your wristband. Jen can come too. Do you want to come?" Now, this is not at VidCon proper. It's a few blocks away that you have to get to. So I'm like, I text Jen, I'm like, "Is this something you think we should go to?" And she's like, "Duh, yeah, we should." When are we ever going to get invited to this again? I'm like, "Oh yeah, no, you make a good point. I'm being dumb." So I'm like, "Cool, I'm on my way. I'll text you when I get there." We get a lift. We bomb over to this new hotel. We get out. I text the person, and they're like, "Okay, perfect. I'm going to send some people out there for you to get to let you in." And so I'm let in, and me and Jen are there, and this is a room that is full of these high-profile YouTubers. So, you have like John and Hank Green, you have the Gregory brothers are there, but you have all the BuzzFeed people, like Josh Sundquist, and who else am I forgetting? Like John Cozart and Megan Tonjes, and like the Third Pew, and basically like there's a lot of big people, and those are kind of medium-sized people now that I'm thinking back on it. But pretty much anyone who is anyone that's in online video is at this party, and I'm like, I shouldn't be here, but I make the most out of this awkward situation for me. There is a friend of mine who has big ties with Patreon, and I see them. I'm like, I am doing a beeline for this person, because honestly, you're the only other person I know, and it's not like I'm going to go sit beside Phil DeFranco or something. I was like, "Hey Phil, how's it going?" Like, I can't do it. I'm not. That's not the type of person I am. And so talk with him for a bit, and then I start to like branch out and start talking to some of my favorite creators and people, and have some really good and deep conversations. And it turned out to be a really, really fun time, open bar, but the music was so loud, like to the point where like if someone was talking to me, I had to almost have my ear next to their mouth because I could not hear what they were actually saying. Totally not my scene at all. So completely out of my comfort zone. Yes. What dreams do come true, says Vince in the comments. It is true. It was like triumphant music was playing behind me, but like everything came into slow motion. A tear started forming on my cheek. It was great. So it was a really fun time. Probably will never happen again. I'm gonna say might not ever happen. I don't want to say blanket never gonna happen again. Probably not gonna happen again. But the secret, that's how the secret works. If I put it out into the world, it will happen for me. So I know it's going to happen next year. That's what I should start saying. So that is my crazy story from VidCon, and how I somehow finagled my way into the Patreon party by just going and talking to someone after a panel. So what the big takeaway is, kids, is this: is that if you want things to happen, go to VidCon and just accost people after their panels are over. And it's a win-win situation. That's pretty much it for me. If there's not going to be any questions, what I'm going to do is I'm now going to jump over to my Patreon members. I'm going to do a live stream for them. So definitely, if you are a Patreon member, in about a couple minutes, you should be getting a link to go over and watch it from there. I'm going to go over some of the new changes I'm thinking of doing on my Patreon page. If you're not a Patreon member, you can definitely go and support me over on patreon.com/thekylemarshall. My videos are always going to be free for you, but over there you get kind of access to scripts before the videos come and get released. You get these live streams that are separate to the ones I do for the main channel. Be very forewarned that things are going to change on my Patreon page here within the next couple of days as tiers get reorganized and probably some of them disappear and get grandfathered away. Cool. Yes. Jen says in the comments here, free food, but it was kind of bad. Terrible churros. That is absolutely true, actually. I was shocked at how good the drink was that I got, but how bad the food was, weirdly enough. Okay, cool. That is my live stream for the month of July. I will see you next month, obviously. And like I said, if you're a Patreon member, expect a link here very, very shortly. Have a good day.